truth is that under our government, there have been no changes to funding. Any suggestion that that funding arrangements were the result of changes to the CSIRO budget is incorrect. CSIRO is undertaking a consultation process with their staff over the next few weeks and will be seeking input from external stakeholders as appropriate. So this is about making sure that CSIRO as an organisation is able to be more effective, because one of the objectives that we pursue as a government, right across government, is that we want to ensure that taxpayer resources are deployed in the most efficient, the most effective and the most well-targeted way possible. That is exactly what we're doing. And the advice, of course, from the CSIRO, as I've said, is that there will be no net job losses, although there will be a realignment of activity in order to ensure that their structure reflects the changing priorities in a changing world. So it is true that the proposed changes are, of course, an operational matter for the CSIRO. CSIRO is following its normal consultation process, as is required under its enterprise agreement. I understand that the CSIRO's management are assessing the feedback from an extended consultation period in context of their organisational priorities, as well as understanding of CSIRO's future performance against existing contracts and collaboration arrangements. And the CSIRO's chief executive and executive team will then finalise the planned changes as is appropriate, and the CSIRO management, of course, considers that further significant delays in making these changes would have a detrimental impact on staff, as CSIRO is unable to provide certainty to those areas that are directly impacted. Now, Mr. President, as I've indicated right at the outset, to have a Labour senator who was a senior minister in the Rudd and Gillard Labour governments come into this chamber and complain about a lack of timeliness in providing answers to questions, something that clearly upset Senator Wong, the fact that he asked that question and initiated this debate that we're now engaged in. But the chutzpah involved in a Labour senator complaining about a lack of information from this government, when we have bent over backwards to provide answers in a timely fashion. We've prided ourselves in providing answers in a timely fashion. We've prided ourselves in following proper Senate procedure when it comes to claiming public interest immunity in relation to those pieces of information that on reflection it would not be in the national interest to publicly release at a particular point in time. We've prided ourselves in doing all of this, yet this senator comes in, and because a piece of information that was particularly complex to collect is 19 days late. Really, is that the most important priority, Senator Carr, through you, Mr. President, that Senator Carr feels that the Senate should be debating at this point in time? You really wonder, and clearly Senator Wong was very unhappy there with Senator Carr having initiated this debate. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised, and I suspect that this is a continuation of the wars that we witnessed on the Labour side of politics in the period between 2007 and 2013. What was the name of that?
Killing season. The
killing season. The killing season. Apparently we're going to get a book, the book version, the expanded book version of the killing season. And I'll go to the index, Mr. President, and see what Senator Carr and Senator Wong, to sort of see how often they come up in dispatches together. And I wonder, I didn't hear Senator Carr complain when I wasn't able to get answers from Senator Wong, by the way, in relation to the climate change modelling that was undertaken by the Gillard Labour government. I mean, the Rudd and Gillard Labour governments, I remember spending weeks and weeks and weeks, every single question time, asking questions about when are we going to see this modelling, when are we going to see the underlying assumptions, not just in relation to climate change, incidentally, also in relation to the mining tax. Remember the mining tax? The tax which we always said wouldn't raise any money, the tax where we asked the Labour government to provide us with the underlying assumptions and the modelling information. And of course, the then Treasurer, Mr. Swan, went running for the hills when we asked him for information that we knew would prove that that was a tax which wouldn't raise any money when Labor had already promised to spend all the money they thought it would raise and more. So that is, I mean, so we will contrast our track record against yours any day. We will put our track record when it comes to openness and transparency against your track record any day, Senator Carr. So I'm confident, I'm very confident that Senator Sinodinos, representing, of course, the illustrious and very impressive senior minister in Minister Pine here in this chamber, will provide the answers to the questions that you've put on notice during the last Senate estimates period in a timely fashion, but of course being focused on making sure that the information we provide to you is accurate, is factual, does not mislead, that it informs the public debate rather than to, of course, hinder the public debate. And here I've just got some very interesting information which was published on the 17th of April 2013. This relates to the Gillard government's lack of accountability in Senate estimates. So here we go. Figures supplied by the Senate Clerk's Office, this is in April 2013, show that 58% of questions on notice are still outstanding after 2 months, despite a requirement that all questions be answered by 12 April. So this is exactly 3 years ago. This is the tail end of your government, the government that you were a senior cabinet minister in, well, for a period at least, until you sort of got caught up in the wars, in the killing season. I think that somewhere along the way you got involved in the killing season, or Senator Carr was a victim of the killing season somewhere along the way. But here we are. Figures supplied by the Senate Clerk's Office back in 2013 showed that 58% of questions on notice were still outstanding after 2 months, despite a requirement that all questions be answered by 12 April. 5 portfolios and agencies: Resources, Energy and Tourism, Austrade, Immigration and Citizenship, Infrastructure and Transport, and Regional Australia, Local Government, Arts and Sport, failed to answer any questions whatsoever by the due date. Not a single question was answered by the due date under this Gillard and then Rudd Labor government. And you come in here, Senator Carr comes in here and complains about our performance when it comes to the timeliness of providing answers to questions put to us. Well, Mr. President, really, it is quite ridiculous, and I'm pretty sure that Senator Wong is not very pleased with Senator Carr for having initiated this debate here today, because she, out of all ministers, actually would well remember that she's got a very bad track record when it comes to answering questions taken on notice during Senate estimates or indeed during Senate question time. I mean, I sort of spend a bit of time with Senator Wong in Senate estimates out of opposition. In fact, you know, I would say that I've learned a little about how to handle questions in Senate estimates from Senator Wong. And let me tell you, again, I'm still waiting for a whole heap of answers that Senator Wong and indeed Senator Conroy took on notice during my period as an opposition shadow minister. Mr. President, I mean, the question that was put by Senator Carr, the motion that was moved by Senator Carr was, of course, about 2 main issues. It was, firstly, about the proposition that somehow Senator Sinodinos had been inappropriately tardy in providing answers, and I believe that I've addressed this question by contrasting our performance, our strong and effective performance on this front with that of the previous Labor government. And of course the other part of the issue that was raised by Senator Carr was again to wrongly assert that there have been all these significant cuts to the CSIRO which would undermine their capacity to undertake important climate change modelling. Let me again refute this. The government is providing a record $3.1 billion of funding in the current budget forward estimates period to the CSIRO over the 2015-16 forward estimates. The CSIRO is working to do things better to ensure that the money that is made available to them, ultimately by taxpayers, is spent as effectively and as efficiently as possible. That is what you would expect. That is what you would expect a good government to do. That is what this government is doing. That is what you would expect a good government to do. And I don't really understand why Senator Carr would be coming into this chamber and complain about the fact that we are doing our job the way the Australian taxpayers would expect us to perform our job. And again, and in closing, let me say that given Senator Carr was a senior minister in a government that religiously failed to even try to answer questions, to the point where a whole series of departments did not answer one single question that was put to them by the due date in Senate estimates. It is really quite extraordinary that Senator Carr would have the chutzpah to come into this chamber and complain about our performance.
Thank you, Senator Cormann.